Hey guys, and in this tutorial series we're going to be creating the Lunar Landing module from the Apollo 11 missions in Blender. So these are our reference images. These will help us as we go along. You can download these in the package link at the description underneath this video. So it's going to take us a little bit of time to do. It's quite complicated on the top area. There's a lot of details in here. You can go really detailed with this if you want. And afterwards we're going to do hopefully a pretty cool animation where we'll see this blasting off and we might model the lunar surface as well and create a full scene. So let's see where this takes us. We're going to start off in Blender by deleting the default object, and we'll create a plane object which we're going to scale up a little bit. And if I switch over to the top view and tab into edit mode here, grab some loop cuts and enter and escape, and then we'll stick another one in here and escape. And when we place these in and you hit escape, it will just put it in the midpoint because we want to have these equally spaced. So cut like so, and another one here. Now once we've done that, we're going to grab our knife tool and we're going to join up the corner vertices of this grid. So make sure you got vertex to vertex, and that's because the base of the lunar module is octagonal, but it isn't exactly an even octagon. These diagonal corners are shorter than the long edges. So now we can delete those faces like that. So there's our basic lunar module shape. We can now select all of this, we can hit E to extrude, and we'll extrude this up to about the thickness of our lunar module, which is, for the base, the thickness is approximately half of the width. So just going to drag that down a little bit. That's probably about right. So the distance from here to here should be about the distance from there to there, so maybe a little bit thicker, not too much. Alright, so once we have done this, I'm actually going to now remove the bottom faces. So face select, we'll grab hold of all of these bottom faces here, X, and delete faces. Go to edge select, shift and alt, grab all those edges, E to extrude and S to scale. We're going to bring this in, be around this far, and E to enter and S to scale again. And then we're going to drag these edges out because there's kind of a raised area on the bottom of the lunar module that sticks out a little bit like so. Yeah, slightly more. Now once we've done this, E to extrude and S to scale again, and we're going to bring this in to around here, and then hit F for face. I'm going to go to the bottom view. Oops, that would actually be the top. Okay, I've done these the wrong way around. I just need to rotate everything around, so we'll rotate it all 180 degrees. Okay, so now when we go to our bottom view, we should be looking at the bottom. Correct. Tap back into edit mode, deselect all. Alright. Now on the bottom here, I'm going to grab these edges, scale these out a little bit. Maybe in slightly. Okay, let's go back to the bottom view. Now we're going to need a circle which goes around here, and then we're going to need another circle that goes around the inner edge. So we'll tab back out of edit mode. We go to create, and we'll create a circle here. We'll drag this down so we can see it. Back to the bottom view. We're going to scale this circle up. So it probably wants to sit somewhere around there. Now let's just check that that aligns up. So a little bit bigger on the circle. scale slightly. So I want it to sit kind of in between these two areas here. Then we're going to have another circle which is going to sit on the inside part. So we'll Shift D to duplicate, Enter, S to scale, and that circle is going to sit around there. So that is probably good for us. Okay, now we're going to Shift, select these two objects, tab into edit mode, and then we go to Tools and Knife Project. Tab back out of edit mode, select only the lamp, and there we have now, that's drawn that circle onto the surface for us. Now we're going to use that later on to create a surface panel, but so we'll just leave that as it is for now. Go back to the bottom view. Now we're going to select this circle, our main module, tab into edit mode, knife project. You see what that's done now is created a hole for us. Tab back out of edit mode and we can remove these two circles. They are no longer needed. X to delete. Select this and we're going to change that from plane to LM base. LM meaning lunar module base. Okay, tab back into edit mode. Edge select, and we're going to grab all of these edges. So Shift and Alt, and we go around like so. So now we've got all those edges there. Now E to extrude, and this is going to be brought inwards, and then we hit S to scale. We're going to scale that in. And this is going to be the area where our rocket booster comes out from. So track that in a little bit. Now we're going to get some loop cuts, and I'm just going to place a couple of those around here because again we're going to have some panel lines and we're going to be using these loop cuts for the panel lines. So imagine each one of these loop cuts is a different panel line. Okay. Now we can grab hold of all these edges here. So Shift and Alt, hit F for face, and that will create us a face there. Now I'm going to grab hold of this face. I'm going to reset our origin point. Okay, we'll grab hold of that face, Shift and D to duplicate it, P to separate by selection. That will create as a new part here, which will be LM booster. This will be our lunar module booster. Okay, so tab into edit mode, grab hold of this, hit E to extrude, and this is going to be extruded outwards. Let's go to a side view. And we want to drag this out, not too far. The rocket booster doesn't protrude too far below the LM, but probably around here will be enough. Okay. Now I've done that, we'll hit X to delete that face. We can probably delete this inner face as well. No longer needed. Right, and now we're going to shape this into rocket booster. Shift and Alt, select that edge, S to scale, let's just scale this out. It's pretty easy to do, to change that into a rocket booster shape. It's not quite so flared, probably around there, maybe a bit more. Okay, and once we're happy with this, we're going to go into loop cuts again. I'm going to stick one and two loop cuts here. Face select, Shift and Alt and select an edge here, and that will select that ring. Hit S to scale. We'll scale that out just a small amount because there's a small step around the edge here, so scale it maybe a little bit more and then we'll drag it down. That should give us that nice step there. Okay, then we go back to edge select, select this edge loop here, E, enter, S to scale. We're going to thicken this edge up. E and enter. And we're going to extrude this time downwards. Like so. We'll hit S to scale. E and enter and S to scale again, because this inside part is going to be stepped. So it's just a matter of extruding, scaling, extrude and enter, S to scale again to create the step, extrude, drag it down, S to scale, E enter and S to scale to create another step, E enter, extrude this down, S to scale, and so on until we reach basically the bottom of our rocket booster, which we have done already. So there we go. And then we'll just hit F to close up this face. Tap out of edit mode. We can select this face here and delete it, no longer needed. So now we have our rocket booster. Just need to create one final face on here though, on the booster itself. So tab into edit mode. We'll grab hold of these edges, Shift and Alt, drag those out a little bit, scale it in, and then E enter and S to scale will create the face here. E and enter and S to scale, E enter and S to scale until we can add the face in the center there. And actually, I'm going to do the same on the inside. So we'll delete that face, grab hold of these edges. This just helps to make things a little tidier when we come to do our subsurf modifier in a moment. And we'll hit F to create the final face. Okay, so there is our basic rocket booster shape. We'll put our lunar module back in. There we have it. And tab out of edit mode, we'll go to smooth shading. See, that helps instantly. We have a nicer looking lunar module there. We go to modify, and we're going to add a subdivision surface modifier. That will just help smooth things. Smooths things a little bit much. So to fix those, a couple of things we can do. One is we can add in what's called an edge split modifier, which will sharpen up some of those edges. So we can split everything that's more than a couple of degrees. But that can become a little bit tricky to control, because now it's also splitting those outside edges. So what we do is we turn off edge angle and we'll turn on sharp edges, and you can see here, if we just move it up in our stack actually, so it's above the subsurf modifier, that helps immensely. So there's our edge split now, and by adjusting the edge angle you can adjust how much splitting there is, but we can put that up to around 30 degrees. So you just have to make sure your edge split modifier sits above the subsurf modifier in your modifier stack. Okay, that's basically our rocket booster done for now. We'll put our lunar module base back in. So there we go. Okay, pretty happy with that. Okay, now then, there is a small area that sticks out on the side of the lunar module. As we look at it from the front, the ladders are going to be here on the left side, and on the right side here, there's on the right face, so it's going to be on this face, there is an area that comes out. So what I'm going to do is get a loop cut. I'm going to move that up to around here, We'll grab hold of these two faces, and these are going to be extruded outwards. So hit E to extrude, and it comes out. It's not very far, it's just a little bit. And then we'll grab hold of these two edges. We'll move that down because it slopes downwards. And grab hold of these two edges and scale those on the Y because it also comes in, but the bottom is flat. Right, so that's our basic shape there done for this protrusion on the side. So other than that, the lunar module is pretty much symmetrical in shape. So that pretty much finishes off our lunar module base. I'm going to want to add some radius to some of these corners because they're a little bit sharp right now. So the way I'm going to do that, let's see if this works. We'll add a bevel modifier. I want to bevel all of these edges. I'm going to give them 2 segments. Size a little bit smaller. Make it 3 segments because all of these edges should be a little bit rounded. There was nothing kind of really sharp about these edges, and you'll see later on when we come to texture it, or if you look at our reference image, you'll see it's got this kind of tinfoil texture to it. So we want to round some of these edges. This is the protrusion that we just made, by the way, that sticks out there. That's this piece here. So we'll round all those edges a little bit. Maybe 3 segments will be enough. Don't want them to be too rounded. Possibly 2. Make it 3. I think that looks better. Okay. So that just smooths off some of those edges a little bit for us. And now we've got some parts here. You see these rods that come out on the corners which are holding the legs in place, and then this frame at the bottom. We're going to need to construct these. So we're going to make these as a separate piece, and then we'll just duplicate them and put them into position. So each one of these actual lunar legs is going to be its own separate pieces. So we're going to create those from a cylinder, basic cylinder object, and we're going to be extruding them out into this shape. Okay, so go to create cylinder. 32 vertices is okay, and for end caps we'll leave the end caps on. Obviously this is way too large, so we're going to scale it down, and these are going to be on each and every corner. So I'm just going to begin by positioning it approximately where it needs to be. On the corner here. And then rotate it on the X 90 degrees, and we want to rotate it on the Y, Z, about 45 degrees. Now we may want to make that rotation a little bit more. Maybe here I'll rotate it another 25 degrees, something like that. Turn normals on, so now when we move it around, it will move along its own axis. And these are basically attached in at either end, and then there's this flat area on the end there. Now if we go over to Google here and we look at some other photos of the lunar module, See if we can get some closer up areas of this. So what we are making here is basically these arms that are coming out on either side there. You can see they're quite chunky on the original one, the original lunar module. Pretty chunky, these arms, and they're almost molded in and part of the main body there. See if we can get another view of them. Here, those arms coming out there. They're pretty chunky. So you might want to scale those up a little bit. Okay, and then we'll grab the scaling and we're going to scale it this way. Excuse me. Drag them out. Probably in this area. It's looking good. Now let's check back with some of our reference images there. See, they get thicker towards the end, so we might want to do that. But on the real photos, you can see here they're not the same shape as what we've got on our reference image. So sometimes it's good to check around with different reference images. Try and get a feel for how you want yours to look, whether you want it to look like this or closer to the original. I'm going to go with this, a kind of thicker feel there. And once we've created one of those, we're going to need to mirror it, and it's going to join up at a point where our leg can then extend from. Probably be scaled in a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to add then to here a mirror modifier. Tab into edit mode. So we're mirroring it over along the x-axis. Then it's going to need rotating in towards each other. So tab into edit mode, rotate, or rotate them inwards. Tab back out of edit mode. Let's try and drag these into position. Going to be something like this. Right, angle down slightly. Like so, okay. Just play around with the positioning of this until you get them just right. I may want to tab into edit mode and scale until these join up. And that gives a little bit of a messy end. So that would be one way of making these, but it gives this problem then when you want to join up the end. And what we want to have is a nicer join there. So instead, what you can also do is do an extrude along path. So you can either model them this way, or if we go to a top view, that can require quite a bit of messing about to try and line everything up. So we create a bezier curve. Tab into edit mode. And then we just want to adjust this curve so it comes from each corner. You bring both of these out, like so. Let's go to a top view. Make sure we get these lined up properly. Once we've done that, we can go to a right side view. Okay, I think that's good. Let's go to top again. We might just want to sort the end out. Make that a little bit more pointed, possibly. Now we just need to create a circle which we'll adjust the scale of. Select our bezier curve, and then in the curve settings for the bevel object, choose bezier circle. And by adjusting the scale of our bezier circle, we can adjust the thickness of this bar that we're creating there. At the moment, this sticks out a little bit too far, so we can edit our original curve again. Back to top view. We'll just move this inwards. Move this one inwards. The closer together we have these 2 points, the sharper the apex of this will be. Doesn't need to stick out too far. Together. So just play around with your bezier curve until you get the sharpness of the curve that you desire, sharpness of the apex. That's about good for us. And we'll drag this up. Put it into position. Okay, so that is a lot easier than creating the two cylinders and trying to, match up the ends of them. So this is extruding along a path. Now once we've done that, you can convert this into a mesh. So convert to mesh from curve, and now we can actually delete our circle object because we don't need that anymore. And then it's just a matter of copying this into each one of those sides. So Shift and D, or actually, we can use a mirror modifier, I think. So add modifier, mirror modifier. Our mirror object will be the LM base, and we mirror on X and Y. And there we have it on all 4 of our corners. So we'll call this LM legs. This is going to be the beginning of our legs. All right. So there's our lunar module, beginning of the support for the legs. And the legs will just be a cylinder that we extrude out, which is going to be pretty straightforward. So we'll do those before we finish off with this tutorial. So create a new cylinder. Scale it down, scale it on the Z to get it to the kind of length that we need. I'm going to go to a top view, maneuver it into position. So on the corner here, drag it down. Scale them, make them a little longer. And then we're going to want to rotate them on the x-axis, maybe minus 23 degrees. Rotate it on the y-axis. Sorry, the z-axis. Go to top view. Till it sticks out like so. Down on normals selected, we'll drag that out to here. And I think just about done. Scale it down a little bit because it gets narrower towards the top. We'll thicken that up later. Thicken up the rest of the leg later in a moment. So we just want to make sure that it kind of all connects up here nicely, which it does do. Scale down again until it plugs nicely into the end, almost seamlessly. I want to make it really quite thin. Like so. And then the scale handles, just need to make it longer. That now is about the right length, maybe a tad shorter, but not much. Okay, now we need to do a little bit of work on thickening these up. So to do that, we just hit Tab to go into edit mode, Tools, Loop Cuts. So I'll add a loop cut around here. Another loop cut at the middle there. Okay, so with that one selected and this top one selected, Shift and Alt. And both of those selected, we hit S to scale. We'll thicken up things a little bit. So that gives now a little bit of shape to that leg there. Should move those down, scale them up a bit more. Again, and where it goes into the bottom, we'll put in another loop cut here. And select all of this. Scale again. Put another loop cut in above there. Okay, so Shift and Alt and select here and scale. It gives us a point to the end of it. And there we go. Okay, and then tab out of edit mode. And then it's just going to be a matter of joining this up to our main piece here. Object. Join, and it will be automatically copied around to all of the other sides there. So there we have the very, very basis of our lunar module. That's enough for this tutorial. In the next part of the tutorial, we're going to continue adding in these support structures on the corners, and then we're almost done with the bottom part with the base. So I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks for tuning in.